Hello, my homies. Let's talk about formats, in particular the LEC format. There's been a lot of complaints, rightfully see from my side, from the competitive side, from even the viewership perspective. Who was this format truly for? But first, for those who don't know, let's look in what the format is. We have this double, of course, two-group format where the teams only played 4 best of 3s to then qualify to playoffs. The playoffs is going to be a double elimination, but only for the teams that top the group. As you can see, Koi, Fnatic, G2, and KC. And the bottom teams then, GX, BDS, Team Red Vitality, are going to start in the loser bracket. So there's a world where, obviously, well, we are in that world, where teams either played 4 best of 3s in summer and they're out, or they're going to play 5 series and they're out. And in terms of volume, if you make the comparison to, of course, the LPL, you make the comparison to the LCK, we can start with the LPL. In the regular season, the top bracket teams played 14 best of 3s because it's 8 teams and they played double round robin. And then, of course, the bottom group played 10 best of 3s because of the double round robin. And additionally, the LPL is going to, of course, have a double elimination playoffs with nobody starting in the lower bracket. So everything is fair and square. And the, of course, system is used to seed the teams as good as possible and at the same time give teams that make a breakthrough through the Nirvana group a chance to potentially, make it without being in a situation where they start the playoffs with a massive disadvantage besides seeding. Just to loop in completely, there's a play-in phase where, of course, the bottom end teams play against the bottom 4 teams of the upper bracket, and they are going to play a best of 5 to then qualify to, of course, the bracket stage, which leaves them with 8 teams. Of course, Korea, very similar in that sense. If you take a look at the Korea format, we had a triple round robin with 5 teams, and each team played 12 best of 3s in the second, of course, round of it all, which is a large amount of volume. And then, of course, the playoff is going to be a double elimination run because obviously it's a really big deal. You have the season play-in the same way the LPL does, and then the season playoffs where you have, of course, the double elimination for everybody involved, which I think is, of course, super cool. So what are the main complaints, for the EMEA format? So little damn games. I didn't even begin to mention, it's like the volume of games is so damn low. But additionally, the break between the games that the teams play is just plain and simple ridiculous. Take a look at Fnatic as an example. They are going to play in 1 week and 3 days. The last time they played their match against G2, it was the match against G2, was on the 17th. They just have more than a month off. What are we doing, man? We just don't get to see Fnatic play for a whole ass month. And they're supposed to actively improve in that environment when regionally, in the other regions besides LTA, there is steady competition, steady flow of games. From the Riot side, I understand that running the show is extremely expensive. Because to, of course, abide by all laws in terms of, having a crowd and there's certain things that need to be in place, safety measures need to be in place. Like, there's firefighters on site, there is medical staff on site, there is a large amount of security, there's also catering, there's also like a bistro with the option for the food for, of course, the fan area. There is also cameramen, there's producers. In terms of running a show, it's like you might have like 200, 300 employees running on a show day with 2 best of 3s, which is a lot of money. I would be surprised if a show day doesn't cost, if a show day costs less than 100k euros to run a day, I would be very surprised. That's the amount of staff that is running. Obviously, there's been budget cuts, and I'm just guesstimating here, so I could be off, but I'm just adding the talent portion. You need to pay the talent and so forth. All of these things that are in place in terms to make sure that the show runs, that makes it a lot more limited in terms of how many show days they can run. But in my opinion, the main thing here, another challenge that you're facing, not only the financial side, but the second challenge that you face that the LPL has addressed, that the LCK has addressed, is of course that a lot of these games are simply boring. The LTA and of course the LEC have tried very hard to treat all teams as equals. But the truth is, they aren't. If you look at the LEC, who carries the weight? You have Kaminko, you have G2, Fnatic, Koi. These are the most interesting teams. And if there's a team out there that wants to break through, whether it's a BDS or a Vitality or a Giants, it's like they need to put in the effort to prove themselves and to climb. Because imagine a world now where if you look at this LEC format and we had a group with Koi, KC, Fnatic, G2, and Giant X based off of the standing of spring, we would have very exciting games every damn week. And then at the same time, I think the best that you can get out of teams that aren't super competitive against the best is that you get the battle of the bads. The battle of the bads, you determine a winner and they get to challenge, of course, in the promotion. I think they could have adjusted and adopted the LCK format plain and simple, but that doesn't, of course, address the issue of the staffing and the cost of running the LEC show days, because doing that over 3 days becomes very difficult. In my opinion, I think that you should focus on making the show days with the crowd on the days where you have big games. And I think that you should create a circumstance where maybe you run show days on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and these are days where you don't do the crowd. You have the teams come into the venue, you have the static cameras, and they are playing from there. And then you have the commentators, as per usual, because they're super important, and the analyst desk. And then you cut the crowd portion of it. And then this is how you can save costs. I understand that the crowd shots and so forth are cool, but in my mind, the amount of volume of games here is very, very tough. And even if you don't want to move and there's no flexibility on expanding the amount of show days, because I understand the costs and also the potential dilution of your product, I do think at least don't create so much dead room in your format. This split, we've had some show weekends that have been 2 days, some with 3, some have been moved to Monday, Tuesday. Now, suddenly, after the format concludes, we have a long-ass break, like a break week. This truly only benefits the teams that went international. G2 and Koi are getting so heavily benefited by this format, while the other teams have these huge vacuums of no games at all. Fnatic, as I mentioned, they are probably the worst one. We're just 1 month of no games at all while they're playing in a competitive format. All of these teams only played 4 best-of-3s, which of course is very, very tragic. I think the previous format in spring was solid, but of course that was drawn out for a very long period of time. And the format leading into MSI was the one where all the regions had the most amount of time to, of course, play things by the regular schedule, because the winter format was very, very short for everybody leading up to first stand. Like the LCK Cup was very short, the LPL format was very short and condensed. And the same thing for, of course, the LEC that did it over the span of 6 weeks. Spring was the long one. And that's why that format felt, the best. Because at the same time, we had these big venue shows, which were super, super cool. So on that part, it was very nice. But I think the LEC would have felt so much better if we had the top 5 teams in the Group A, and then the lower-end teams in Group B. And then you just, maybe there's a way where you can even save costs by sending 3 teams into the venue on a show day, and then you make them play against each other on the same day. And let's say you send G2, Fnatic, Koi, and all these teams play against each other once on the same day. You get 3 best-of-3s, and maybe that's how you squeeze it in and make the format work. I think there's definitely room for flexibility to create a circumstance where the teams play more games. And at the same time, I think you gotta have an honest conversation about the value that these teams bring. The final thing I wanted to, of course, add is in China, they went even more extreme, because this is the 2nd year running of Nirvana Group for them. So they invented this format of creating this separation where basically Group Nirvana is tier 2 that gets to qualify into, the playoffs and get the chance to fight against Group Ascend. And then based on the playoffs, maybe put themselves in a position where they get to be in Group Ascend for the next one, like a Funplex Phoenix or a Team WE. But what they did, because obviously LPLs, have the situation where their team, they have so many teams. Just take a look at Split 2 rules. So basically, Fearless, bottom 6 of Group Ascent and top 2 of Group Nirvana qualify for playoffs play-in. Bottom 2 of Group Nirvana are eliminated from LPL 2025. They will play in the LDL Split 3. And that, of course, was OMG and RNG, and these teams just got bankrupt. I think it just got to the point where teams, the higher end teams, the big spenders, they are realizing that through the format, you kind of need to put pressure on teams, because right now they have no incentive to spend money or no incentive to basically level up their team and to get better. They basically freeze them out of the format. And obviously, the LEC did this with the BO1s that lasted, of course, 3 weeks with the Super Weekends, and then following that by eliminating 2 teams from the get-go. I just think that, BO1s is just such an archaic way of playing League, so I think the adjustment needs to be in accordance to best of 3. And I would love a situation where, we are honest about where we're at, and in the end, I just want to see the big games. We had so few exciting games. I guess that's another detail of this format. It's like, who is it for? We got to see G2 versus Fnatic, and then Koi versus KC. Everything else was kind of redundant. It's like, we got Vitality versus KC. That was like one that was like, oh, all right, that's a match, A Vitality with the upset win. Okay. But other than that, watching this LEC group stage was borderline pointless. Because in the end, you take a look at the summer playoffs, we basically got exactly what everyone expected. Navi out, SK out, and there you have it. What do you guys think? Leave a little comment below. I think there's adjustments to be made. I understand the problems that the LEC faces, but I think it's time to have a harsh conversation about which teams are actually carrying the league and actually create a format that puts them at the forefront rather than treating all of these teams like equals, because the truth is they aren't. Give them chances to qualify in to the big games, but the league is already in a tiered system, whether you like it or not. So at least lean into it and get the gains. Actually get the gains. Because the top 4 is already separated from everybody else. So just take advantage of it. Peace.